What's good, everybody? It's Mike White, aka the son of a Michael, back with another episode of the My Side of the Story podcast. Um, it's my second episode. If you tapped into the first one, I'm just getting my feet wet. I know I even checked it out, sounded kind of nervous, so just bear with me. I'm trying to get better. It's my first experience doing this, so as I get better, I hope to add on and get better quality and get better with my delivery and everything. But as I said, this is my side of the story podcast where I give my side of the story about my life and things I've been through up to this point in my life and going through, and things that's happening, and just give my side of my view. If you tapped into the last episode, you get a little idea of where I'm trying to go with it in that sense. And with this episode, I'll try to kind of piggyback on that. If you don't know, my name is Mike White. Like I said before, I'm born and raised in Waynesboro, Virginia. Born in the 80s, 1980 to be exact. Grew up in Waynesboro all my life. My mom is from like the Lyndhurst, Sharanda area, and my dad is from Aliquippa, and that's in Pennsylvania. And they met. Well, it's just kind of history, so to speak. But my mom was probably 17 when she had me, and my older sister Dee Dee, she probably was 16 when she had her. So she was still in high school, still a kid. And, all of this now is just me looking back on what, me reflecting on what happened in my life. Because, as it's going as a kid, these things you realize as an adult, and you don't even think about as a kid. I ain't thinking about my mom being just a kid fresh out of high school. I'm just thinking it's my mom, it's my dad. And they just kids trying to figure it out, and they got kids. So this is the reflection of how you were and the things you went through is totally different when you were live in it. But I couldn't. It's crazy because I couldn't. I guess you didn't feel the effects of me being so young and having to mature so fast then, because they didn't really let you see it. I guess you just experiencing and going through life, and they doing the same. They just trying to figure it out themselves. They just started living. And these are things that I think about now. Being a hard-headed little kid, that you ain't thinking about that. You just, these are my parents, and they just kids trying to figure it out. And we grew up on East Main, which is, if you coming in from the Charlottesville, this is the first street you're probably gonna run into, and if you leaving from that way, it's the last street. As a kid, that was the life that molded us, just going out there and playing with the neighborhood kids and stuff. And as far as I could remember, and these are times that I'm reflecting on. I'm probably like 6 or 7, so this is 6 years of life that only my mom and them probably could tell what happened up until then. You know what I'm saying? So these are just things that I remember and reflect on, just being a kid and growing up in the area and the things that I went through, and some of the stuff that molded me to be who I am, and some of the stuff that led me to go through some of the things. But living around here, you see how differently you could be from somebody who lives in the same area. As a kid, when we went to Winona on our side of town, so you just see the kids maybe that's on your street, but everybody goes home to their own individual lives. You only see them for that bit of a time unless you live in that neighborhood. So for me, my life, consisted of, I had both of my parents there. and my uncle Gene, which is my mom's younger brother, from what you know, from like I said, from he was always there. He was like our older brother, me and Dee Dee's older brother. And I tease him all the time, like he had to go to bed. He older, but he had to go to bed when we had to go to bed and stuff. He had to go to bed at 8. And I'll be like, I tease him to this day, and I'll be like, my mom and dad be like, all right, Dee Dee, Mikey, y'all time to go to bed. And I look back and be like, Uncle Jim, what you doing? You better come on. Yeah. But nah, yeah, he was always there, and he still is in my life, in our life. And so coming up then, seeing the two sides, like our family, my dad's side of the family and my mom's side of the family, like, are like night and day kind of, as far as the way they lived and, they come up in the upbringing as far as the parents and the morally is, definitely very, very similar on the line, but just how they interacted with each other and is different, and how they were as far as they lived as kids was different. Because my dad coming from Malaquippa, they had a different lifestyle. My grandfather, my dad's dad was a preacher, and my grandmother, his wife, Graham, was a reverend as well. So, and I got a lot. They had a lot of siblings. Got a lot of uncles on that side, and as well on my mom's side, she had a lot of siblings as well. And my granddad on that side, he was a chef, and so was my grandmother. So, the two different worlds as well, And so, my first experiences with my dad's side of the family is when I remember when they first came to Virginia. That I remember, I was old enough to remember, is when you had those big old church vans. Now they old, but they back then in the 80s, like 85, 86, they probably was luxury because they had a TV in it, and I think they might have had a phone. I thought they was rich when they pulled up. I was like, who was these people? You know what I mean? It's like, as a kid, you so excited to meet these people for the first time that you remember, even though I know I met them when I was younger. I don't remember, but when I was a baby or whatever, meeting them now, it's like, oh, you excited. And then they looking at you like you just these country people. They making fun of the way you talk, because back then I'm sure, even now I'm sure our accent is way heavier than we can here, because we hear it all the time, but they used to be like down there and over there, it's a bear up there, and then you get older and realize that Aliquippa ain't as much as more than city or bigger than Waynesboro, but back then it seemed like they were so much far ahead of us as far as like that goes, and knowing and culture. And my dad them definitely was their name was known in their city, in their town. The Browns was known. So coming down here to Waynesboro at the time, was a much different lifestyle for them, and they were young still at this time, which I always got to keep in mind. They were still like teenagers and stuff when they came down here. And my mom and them, where we lived at was the house that everybody came to. So just imagine, all these kids, young kids, my dad them living a certain way and up there, and then they come down to Waynesboro where everything's a little bit, so to speak, slower. But back then in the 80s, Waynesboro was a much different city than what it was now. A lot more things that was going on that you walk around or go outside at 8, 9 o'clock now, there's nobody on the street, just like a ghost town almost, But back then it was always something to do. All these apartment complexes had just different type of atmospheres that included all these hood type of legends, so to speak, and local legends around here that you would hear about, and all these things that would happen that would be exciting to me, when I was coming up, that when my uncles and them would go, like for instance, to the Elks, was down at the Black Park, used to be at night, and they used to have these parties when DJ Hawk, rest in peace, used to DJ down there, Carl Brown, and I was just a kid, But like when my uncles them started coming down there, my dad and all of them, they started venturing out, and I used to be able to go sometimes with them, and you would see this type of lifestyle. Then young, like it was kind of fascinating to me, like, and it was just like even just them people having fun. I ain't remember seeing so much like drug dealing or nothing like that, but it was just like you would see people having fun, just getting along. It would be, it would be all black people for the most part. It would be white people here and there, but it was like I just remember like people just having a good time and all these people gathering in certain spots and certain times of the night. And, as a kid, it was something to look forward to, seeing these things. And then everybody would come back to our house, and the house parties of the days when the house parties was what it was, and they would all be there. You know, it's almost like a scene from the beginning of Menace to Society where Kane is walking through the house and the music is playing. It wasn't no drugs or nothing, but just people like playing spades and having fun. But I just remember feeling like that little kid sneaking through, and they like Mikey, what you doing out here? In that little scene in my pajamas. It was kind of like that in real life before that movie ever existed. Just without like that type of violence of what they portrayed in the movie, but that atmosphere, the family and all of them being together and playing music and having fun, and I'm supposed to be in the bed type sneaking out. That's the type of atmosphere I grew up around most of my childhood life and going into my adulthood, and as far as the camaraderie and the family atmosphere that was presented to me by my family and on my dad's side for the most part at that time. And so I grew up pretty loving that stuff. I looked up to my Uncle Brucey and my dad and them because it was like I seen them be the heroes to their brothers and sisters. Like they looked up to them, and for them to sticking together and being stand up, so that kind of helped mold me and give me a part of my identity that we don't even know at the time that you search it for as a kid, to have something that's a part of you that you can be proud of, to say that you, on your own and walk with that. And I got that from them too. And they taught us that. And so coming up, my life, in that aspect was really good because they would stick together. We would go on, like Saranda Lake was like the beach to us. So like on the weekends, they would get together and plan these trips for the kids, which at this time, it was just me and Dee Dee pretty much until like the rest of our cousins came down from there. But, we'd be going all these trips and softball games and family reunions, and then just more of the family from there started coming down, and and then my other cousin on the other side, the only other one at the time was Junior, which is my Aunt Debbie's son, Robert Jr., and the twins, but he was the only other oldest one. He was like me and Dee Dee's brother and sister at the time before then. But it was just like everybody pretty much stuck together even more at the time. They would, they have the disagreements, but it wasn't to the point to where you wouldn't see them the next day. It was more everybody sticking together against other people more than them going against each other, and that taught me a lot too. And I learned about always love and always let people fitting in and never leaving nobody out, and never like making somebody feel left out on purpose. Everybody was included, whether you was white, black, or whatever. And another thing I learned, they always held each other accountable too, and responsible. And, so everybody had they played a part on their picnic days or whatever it was they was playing, and then, that type of thing. I learned it was a great thing to see coming up and as a kid. And then when you go outside of that in your family, you go out into your world as a kid, it helps you kind of navigate through your life a little bit better when you know you got a foundation like that at your house. So, you know, when you go to other kids and they might not have that same camaraderie with their parents or their family or their siblings or their cousins or their uncles or older family. So that was a great thing to know as a kid as well, because you notice sometimes when you were a kid, you know, your parents. This is the days where you don't speak disrespectful to any adult. You know what I mean, and especially not your family or people like you know, school teachers and stuff. You know, that was looked at as bad. But at the same time, I seen and learned quick that if you don't have somebody who takes you serious enough to look into some of the stuff you stand, that could lead to you being hurt in situations that, you know, adults take advantage of kids and have you accepting things that you probably shouldn't. You know, from the smallest to the biggest things. You know, it's a lot of area in there that, you know, as a kid you ain't thinking of adults in this way, because your parents, especially when you're going to school, is entrusting these adults with you. So, you know, they even them ain't thinking on along the lines that, you know, they're there to use these stereotypes against you or whatever. And even as a kid, you ain't thinking, you know, when you go to school and you learn about these things that they tell you are, you know, you even more accepting of them, because you know that your parents probably read the same things when they went to school, so they ain't objecting to it because it's what they was subjected to. You know, if that makes sense. But yeah, as a kid, you know, coming up around here, you know, that atmosphere for me helped shape me as a person, and I seen how much different that made my life as far as my perspective and my side and my view of life and of people, because I never was taught to be prejudiced or to be a bully or to look down on people because they didn't have this. I was always taught to look at people the same. So when I seen people that was different or may have been treated different, I could relate to that, because I could feel the same treatment that they would get, but just in different ways. So if I was treated different because of my color or whatever, and they got treated different because they didn't have no money, you know what I mean? Then you can still relate to the same way it felt to be left out or pushed out. And so now, you know, as a kid, when you went home with that with your parents, and they had to see you going through that pain and that struggle, and them not being able to tell you or anything that can change it or change somebody's views. It takes a lot in a parent not to teach you that hate. And I really commend my parents for not, you know, taking the pain of seeing us in pain and saying, well, they, you know, twist the narrative that some kids' parents do. And they just told us, you know, stand, you know, be strong, you know, and stand up. As long as they don't touch you, you know that. You know, everybody know that rule. As long as they don't put their hands on you. So, but yeah, I'm really thankful for the atmosphere that my parents provided on a regular scale. You know, everybody has their bad days, you know, but on the majority of the time, and what they stood for and what they showed us was always love, and I'm definitely thankful for that, because later on in life, when I start to steer away from the things I was taught, that part of my foundation never left, and it helped me really survive in a world where a lot of us get lost trying to find the foundation when you don't have one. So like when you fall, it's like that dream, you just keep falling, you know, so to speak. And so growing up on, on East May, my parents was young, in the beginning, we went through a lot of stuff. So I think that part of setting the foundation for me and my sister was definitely a major part in our life, because I don't think I would be who I am right now if it wasn't for that. And that is a major part of my story. And a lot of people that was a part of the journey, wouldn't probably or have an idea or wouldn't see that side of anybody unless it was known and they was around it, because by this time you're an adult, what you've done sometimes don't reflect what you was taught, And so for me, coming up, that was definitely one of the biggest pieces to the puzzle of who I am and who I am becoming and who I was. So I think my parents and my uncles and everybody that was involved for that, because it definitely wouldn't be what it is right now if it wasn't for that. And with that, I think I'm going to conclude this episode in this part, and I'll continue this series in the next episode. And I appreciate y'all tuning in. I appreciate everybody tuning into the first one. I appreciate all the feedback. Keep giving me some feedback. I need all the constructive feedback you got. Once again, thanks for all the love. Check out all my the merch all year round. You check it out on ayr365.com. We'll have some more stuff coming. And once again, like I said, this is my side of the story, and I'm sticking to it. Peace.